Well, hello there. Welcome into Syntax Bytes, episode number 5. Today we're going to be hanging out. We'll do some CSS battles. We'll also work on the syntax.fm website and just generally have a good time. So thank you for being here. If you are watching this not live, be sure to check the description. We'll have timestamps to all the different things that we do. And like I said, we're going to do CSS battles. So if you haven't heard of this, this is a website where you're given a photo or a picture and you have to recreate it with CSS. So this is the first one that we're going to try to do today. It's like a circle with what looks like mountains inside of it. And then the other one that we're going to try to do is to recreate the Iceland flag. And so I'll try to solve these from scratch, and you can try to follow along at home as well. And then after that, we're going to work on the syntax website. So syntax.fm is our website. It has our podcast. It also shows all of the videos that we publish and all that good stuff. But it's open source. And so there are a few issues on the GitHub repo that I'm going to tackle today. There's one where we're going to make these buttons work on the homepage, because right now on the homepage, these buttons don't go anywhere, but we'll make them actually go to those specific shows. And then this seemed like a fun one as well. So structured data for the podcast. That's not good. Why is this always happening? I have to restart Firefox real quick. Before I do that, let me say hello to everybody. Let me welcome everybody in. We'll get back into it. There's always technical difficulties. And what's up, Nerixius? Good to see you. Hello, Jonathan. Welcome in. What's up, Suvel and Pranav and Mustafa and Nick and Bukhari Dev? Hello, hello. What's up, Pranav, who says this will be super helpful? Nice. Glad to hear it. Yeah, and good to see you, Andrew and Alka. Yeah, it's live. It's live right now. And thank you to the Mixed Nuts for the follow over there on Twitch. So we're live both on Twitch and YouTube. You can tune in wherever you prefer. What's up, Sue? Good to see you as well. All right, let me restart my browser. I mean, probably for good reason. There's probably like a security fix. I have like 7 browser windows open, and so now everything has to reload. Just a moment. Okay, how about now? So this issue is about implementing structured data for each podcast episode. And there's a specific schema that you can include in your HTML. So there's this thing called JSON LD. And if you include this in the source of your page, then various things like search engines or embeds can use this info to embed information about your site. And so essentially for every podcast episode, we can add a little metadata object like this so that if the podcast episode gets linked in certain places, it'll have all of the relevant info. So that should be pretty easy to add, but it'll be very useful for the site. Those are the issues that I've picked out. If we solve them quickly, maybe we'll pick another one. It's also possible that these CSS battles take me a long time, so we'll see. We'll see. And then before that, we're just going to chat a little bit. I saw this post. First, I found this post over on Reddit, which is a slightly sarcastic history of front end. So I just want to go through it, talk about it. And it was actually originally posted over here on LinkedIn. So we looked at this, but the comments on Reddit are pretty interesting as well. And also, let's turn on dark mode. Yeah, beautiful. Live after a long break. Yeah, it's been I guess over a month since my last live stream here on the Syntax channel. And on the Coding Garden channel. I've been busy. Okay, but let's dive into this. And if you have any thoughts or opinions on this slightly sarcastic history of web dev, let me know in the chat, because I do think it's missing things. I think it's really mainly what I know. Like if you've been around for a while and you've been doing web dev for a while, what do you think is missing from this list? Here, I'll link it in the chat. And it'll be nice to just reminisce and be nostalgic about the old days of web dev. So in 1989, Tim Berners-Lee invents procrastination. Yeah, so he invented the web. We all use it to procrastinate these days. That is true. In 1990, HTML was released because plain text was too boring. So yeah, I guess the initial web was just text, like visiting text documents over the hypertext transfer protocol. And this is my break timer. We're gonna take a quick stretch, quick break. So yeah, HTML was invented. 1994, CSS was invented because HTML alone wasn't enough. So this allowed us to do styles. And I'm not completely sure if this was actually external style sheets, because CSS initially was just in or styles initially were just inside of HTML. I'm curious about the creation of CSS. Let's look it up on Wikipedia. Separating formatting and content. That's exactly what this is. So the initial release was in 1996. Yeah, so they have it here as 1994. Maybe they meant styles in HTML, because I think the actual separate sheets was introduced later on. I don't know. If you know, let me know in the chat. And then JS was created in 10 days back in 1995. What could go wrong? Not much. It's great. Here we are. Everything is fine. Nothing is wrong with JavaScript. And then we have a whole 10 years of missing history. This is kind of what I wanted to talk about too, because before jQuery was introduced, there were a lot of other things that came about. One that I can think of is iframes. So it used to be that if you wanted to maybe load external data or have a certain type of layout, you could use iframes. And you could also have like a master detail view with iframes, where like the left-hand side was links and the right-hand side was an iframe, and then you could set a target. I think you can still do this, but basically you could make it so that when you clicked a link here, it would open that in the iframe on the right-hand side. A lot of sites were built that way. I actually built my high school's website using iframes like that. And then a little bit later, Ajax was introduced. Let's look up when Ajax came out. As it refers to computing, programming, asynchronous JavaScript, and XML. First appeared in 1999. Okay, so we actually skipped a few years as well. But when Ajax came out, that actually made it so that JavaScript itself could make requests for sites and data. So instead of needing a full page reload, or instead of needing to like load data into iframes, you could be on the same page and JavaScript itself could make requests. There's a good thread here on Reddit of people talking about some other stuff too. Yeah, so 1995 to 2006. So yeah, iframes were 97, Ajax was 98. JSON, yeah, it was introduced in 2001. So I mean, I remember the days when we didn't have JSON, and most of what was used on the web was XML. And I built this was even after 2001. Like JSON didn't immediately become the de facto thing, because like I was building SOAP APIs with .NET, basically APIs that returned XML data, and those kinds of things still exist, but JSON has slowly taken over as kind of like the main data format on the web. 2004, the Dojo toolkit was released. I never used the Dojo toolkit. Let's look it up. Yeah, a modular JavaScript framework. Designed to ease rapid development of cross-platform JavaScript Ajax-based applications and websites. Cool. That's awesome. And good to see you too, Elad. Welcome in. What else we got? I mean, there's probably some other things in here too. Some people mentioned like DHTML, which is like dynamic HTML. Oh yeah, and then Silverlight, RealPlay. So there's a whole era of like embeddable external things, right? Like we used to embed like Flash Player. We used to embed other types of things like Silverlight. So Silverlight was Microsoft's response to Flash Player in a way, in that like you basically had to install the Silverlight player, and then you could have embeds on your website that were Silverlight, but you could actually write those with like C# and .NET, but then they could be embedded inside of websites. I did some of that because I did desktop development with WPF and XAML, and you used XAML, I believe, inside of Silverlight. Yeah, and then like like being able to embed like a media player with RealPlayer, that was a thing for sure. Yeah, and then there are also Java applets. Yeah, so there's a whole era that was still technically web dev, but before JavaScript was as decent as it was these days, with all of the niceties and features and everything just built into it, and HTML5 and CSS3. Basically, browsers have slowly gotten all the features that used to require external plugins and external languages as well. So yeah, that was a whole era for sure. What else? Yeah, jQuery came along to save us from the browser wars chaos. Yeah, and the initial idea with jQuery was you could write your code with jQuery, and then depending on what browser it was running inside of, it would do the right thing. Because back then, the browser support for features in JavaScript and also in CSS and everything else wasn't as how do I say wasn't as widespread as it is these days. Like if you look on Can I Use these days, a lot of web browsers, I don't know, what do I search for? I don't know, like HTML5. That's like supported everywhere. Or like semantic elements, sure. But most browsers these days are evergreen browsers, meaning like they try to they automatically update on users' machines, and they're working really hard to stay up to date with everything. And usually these days, you only have to worry about maybe one or two things having like partial support across browsers. And a lot of web browsers these days are actually based on Chrome. So because they're all based on Chrome, they stay as up to date as or they're based on the Chromium engine. They stay up to date as Chrome does. So Edge is based on Chrome. I'm thinking, is Opera? I know Firefox and Safari have their own engines, but these days we don't really have to worry about the differences between browsers as much. So there is so jQuery isn't used for that as much. jQuery is still used every now and then on smaller websites. And Vivian, good to see you. Welcome in. Welcome in. What else? Angular. I was there for the Angular days. Google's first attempt to fix the web. Angular.js was good. I feel like Angular got a bad rap, probably because it made it easy to do things the wrong way, which is kind of the boat that we're in React right now. React makes it really easy to do things the wrong way because it doesn't have a lot of opinions. Angular had opinions, but you could still do bad things with Angular. And I think, and also the whole idea of two-way data binding, people didn't really like that. But I learned everything there was to know about Angular, and I could build efficient, fast websites with Angular. I really liked it. Yeah, then Bootstrap came along, making every website look the same. TypeScript was introduced in 2012. You may not realize this, but yeah, TypeScript is 12 years old. I was actually at Microsoft Build. I guess not when it was released. I think it was at Microsoft Build in 2013 or 2012. And Anders Hellsberg was actually talking about some of the newer features in TypeScript. Maybe I was there in 2012. I don't know. And Pranav says TypeScript is slow. Mixnut says half my age. Yeah. And React came out in 2013. Facebook reinvents the wheel beautifully. That's not, I don't know about beautifully. they did reinvent the wheel though. Vue, and this is another thing people don't realize, is Vue was released only a year later after React. Not even a year, just a few months after React came out. Let's make React but easier to learn. Vue was really cool. Back in the day, you could think of Vue as kind of like the middle ground between AngularJS and React, because a lot of the directives in Vue, like vif and v4 and vshow, were inspired by AngularJS, which had directives like ngif and ng4 andngshow. But Vue, I think it was Vue 2 that eventually got the virtual DOM, so that it was more similar to React. But yeah, thanks for the follows over there on Twitch. Welcome in. Wivy Wonder Woman and Reworking, good to see you. We're going over this history of the web, sarcastic history of the web, so feel free to throw your comments in the chat. I like two-way data binding. I mean, I do too. I think the issues with two-way data binding that most people have is it makes it possible for data to be updated potentially in multiple places, and so then that at scale kind of turns into spaghetti code. That's one of the biggest gripes with two-way data binding. And in things like Vue.js, which has like vmodel and you can create, they introduced the create model thing. It looks like two-way data binding, but it really is just syntactic sugar for the unidirectional data flow that you get inside of React, where you pass down props, and then those can pass the data back, or like call setters to get the data back up. So it's not technically two-way data binding. It just looks like it. I don't know. Yeah, people really play down Redux nowadays. However, I have to say in the early days, it was magical. Yeah, I mean, I was magical maybe, but also very convoluted. Like, we've been talking about this for 10 minutes. Here's my break timer again. So, and I mean, and I say that just because, like, not convoluted. I think anything that's functional programming-esque and is inspired by functional programming is hard for a lot of programmers to grok. And it was for me because I didn't really ever do any functional programming. And so then getting into React, it's like it didn't exactly feel like functional programming because the initial React that I used was class-based. So it kind of felt like OOP, but then it had like these functional aspects to it. And then if you really wanted a nice way to handle state across your entire application, you'd pull in Redux. And then you had to learn about like reducers, and this whole thing. And then what made it even more complex is trying to do asynchronous state with Redux. And so one of the larger apps that I worked on back in the day used Redux and Redux Saga. And Redux Saga was actually based on generators. And so that made for even more complexities and just weirdness. And you could call it a skill issue, but I think like if you just take some React dev and then you drop them into a code base with Redux and Redux Saga and they've never seen it before, it's going to take a lot of time to on-ramp and to figure out how all of that works. Yeah, because React state management wasn't complex enough. Yeah, but that said, Redux these days is a whole lot easier and nicer to use. There's the Redux, is it the Redux Toolkit? Is that what it's called? Yeah, Redux Toolkit. And they've basically removed a lot of the boilerplate. They make it a lot easier to use and learn these days. But back in the day, it wasn't. And then React Native was introduced in 2015. So that's great. You could build cross-platform apps with it, like mobile apps. Yeah. Pranav says, I started with functional programming, and maybe that played a role for me. But yeah, too many different ways to work with Redux. Yeah, I think that's the thing, is trying to push functional programming on programmers who have never maybe seen it before. Maybe it's not that programmers don't want to learn functional programming. It's just that like it's new. And I think even these days, I don't think React is really even sold as a functional programming framework, but it is. Yeah. And then Angular 2 came out. I remember this. And this is the one gripe I had about this list. It did not have mandatory TypeScript. This is actually one of the issues about learning and migrating to Angular 2. Is most of the docs were written with TypeScript, but they also said, hey, you don't have to use TypeScript. And back in 2016, TypeScript didn't have the level of adoption that it has today. So this was actually one of the big reasons why a lot of people didn't adopt Angular 2. So basically the switch from AngularJS to Angular 2 was a complete rewrite. Same name, completely different framework from the ground up with new syntax and new ways of doing things. Of course, inspired by AngularJS, but it is an entirely new thing. Like you would essentially have to rewrite your app if you wanted to upgrade. But I remember back in the day, this was the issue. Like the docs were in TypeScript. I hadn't yet bought into writing everything with TypeScript yet, and so I was like, all right, well, I want to use Angular 2, but I don't want to use TypeScript. And then I couldn't find docs on it. It was tricky. It was tricky. Yeah. So the Mixnut says, every time I look to learn Angular, I just give up. Too much boilerplate, where Svelte makes it easy. I've been spoiled. Well, I think this is one of the other issues that Angular has is there's too many versions. So I'm giving a talk on Monday at JS Nation where I implemented the same app in multiple different ways. And I wrote the code for it, the original code for it. I've rewritten it since then for my talk so that it's up to date. But the original code was with Angular 16 and then I gave a practice version of this talk about a month ago, or like a month ago? I don't know. I gave a practice version of this talk, but I had to upgrade everything to Angular 18. And so when you're searching around for solutions, you find things that are for Angular 16, which is slightly different, and then Angular 18, which has new opinions. Like the docs and the versions are all over the place. It's not doing itself any favors. Yeah. I'm not wrong by default. Would config TypeScript however you can use JavaScript? Maybe. I just remember, like, I'm pretty sure it was possible to use their CLI and you could say no to TypeScript. I'm pretty sure. I don't know. And then Next.js was introduced in 2016. Yeah, because React needed a framework for its framework. And then Tailwind came out in 2017. I didn't really start using Tailwind until like maybe 4 years ago. So I didn't even like know about it or touch it until more recently. Yeah, and then Svelte 3 was released in 2019. It was interesting to see the early versions of Svelte actually looked almost identical to Vue 2 in the options API. Like literally your Svelte components would export an object that had a data property and like methods on it and stuff like that. So like it looked like Vue, but it I don't believe they were using the virtual DOM. It was like compiled. But yeah, that's an interesting historical note as well. Yeah, I mean, this is the other thing about using Angular and TypeScript. It's very enterprisey. All the decorators, binding, dependency injection. There's a lot. I think for anybody that is used to the simplicity of Svelte or Vue, or even the do it your own way of like how React does it, it can be a lot to take on. I will say though, like you do see Angular being used at larger companies because these types of patterns are a lot of the programmers there already are familiar with them because they use Java or C#. But in the world of JavaScript, these are like foreign concepts for a lot of developers. So it's a steep learning curve. I still don't use much Tailwind. That's all right. You don't have to. I like the simplicity of it. Like I haven't worked on a team project with Tailwind yet. So I don't know how that is, but working on my own personal projects with Tailwind, I think it's fine. I think it's great. React hooks were introduced in 2019. Yeah, this was fine. React hooks are fine. I don't know. Use effect is just so cumbersome and weird, and there's so many rules about it, and it doesn't automatically track your dependencies. I don't know. Then Vue 3 came out. Yeah, the composition API nobody asked for. This is another version issue and potential compatibility issue that happened in the Vue ecosystem, where they introduced a new way of writing components, which is the script setup. So if you look in the Vue.js docs, they show this by default now. Well, they used to. Template syntax. Quick start. Show me a component. No, that's the app. Show me a component. Okay, never mind. I can't find an easy example. That's usually not the case with the Vue docs. But they essentially added composition functions, which would allow you to create state, to have various effects, watchers, and basically do things without having to specify everything inside of an options object. And Vue still supports the options way of doing things, but this kind of like fragmented the community because there were some breaking changes in V3 of Vue, and a lot of libraries took a while to update, and so a lot of the ecosystem was like kind of stuck on Vue 2 for a while. And then the composition API, basically, you could think of it like React hooks, but inside of Vue, but better in a million different ways in that you can call them in any order. You don't have to manually track dependencies. You don't have to use them inside of a component. They actually work outside of components. So the composition API is actually really nice compared to like hooks in React. But it has no opinions. It's up to you as a developer to figure out how to structure your code with the composition API. And so that's another issue that a lot of people had with it and still have with it. Yeah. Andrew says, I've been migrating our front end at work from MUI to Tailwind, and I love it. Wow, it's like purely? So MUI is Material UI. That's fascinating. Did you find a Tailwind Material UI library that like has things implemented for you? I only say it's fascinating because Material UI is pre-built components, right? Like if you look at like their button, they give you a button component that you import, and then it just comes styled and works like this. Tailwind is just utility classes, so I would expect use ShadCN. Fascinating. That seems like a big migration then, because you're having to restyle everything, unless you're not worried about making it look the same. But yeah, if you're using ShadCN, that would make sense because that gives you like base components, and then you're using Tailwind to customize. Yeah. And America 2050 says that's why I gave up on Vue. Looked at it right when the change from Vue 2 to Vue 3 was happening. Yeah. The main reason we're switching is because we started our front end just building quickly, and now we have a designer designing things. That makes sense. Yeah, and that's the other thing about using Material UI is you're kind of buying into Material Design, and which is a spec by Google. MUI is not by Google. MUI is an implementation of that spec. But when you add it to your app, here's another break timer. I'm talking a lot this morning. But when you are using Material UI, you're basically opting into Material Design, and so all of these components are pre-styled, right? They look like Material Design, and that makes it easier to build. But your site is going to look like Material Design. But if you have a designer who is kind of designing the components for you, then it makes sense to build it from scratch with like Shadcn and Tailwind, because you can style it how you need to. Yeah, and then that makes sense if you're trying not to make it look the same. Yeah, and Gold June just saying, for Tailwind, everyone says it's easy, but to write CSS inline in my eyes is so bad, and it makes it unmaintainable. Well, I think this is the misconception about Tailwind, is that it's not inline CSS. It is a design system that is kind of just like hidden from you. So inline CSS would make it so that you could use different sizing all over the place in your app and not have any sort of consistency. Tailwind gives you consistency. So when you look at, I want to see there's like their, not the components. There's a section of the docs that kind of just talks about what is Tailwind and how does it work, because there's a really good comparison to make here. Why Tailwind, maybe? Why? Oh, I mean, they have that in here. Why not just use inline styles? So they probably talk about the utility classes, but this is the only thing I want to point out, which is why this is not inline CSS. So take, for example, let's say you implemented something without Tailwind. You'd create your CSS classes, and then you would add all of your styles here. The one thing to note about adding styles like this is you now essentially have magic numbers, right? There's 24 rem, 1.5 rem, 0.5 rem, 25 pixels, 3 rem, 1.25 rem. These are all over the place. And of course, you could clean this up with some CSS variables, but not everyone does that. That would be the ideal way to implement this, even just if you're using plain old CSS, is to have some kind of CSS variables that'll make it so that your sizing can be consistent across your app. The thing to note about Tailwind is those sizings are kind of just default. So when you say P-6, that's not a padding of 6 rem. P-6 actually mean, and whenever you see the -6 on any sort of sizing, that actually means 1.5 rem. And so it doesn't line up one-to-one, but once you start getting used to what their design system is and what these numbers mean, your app is more consistent just by using these. Because even if you compared this to inline styles, you would actually have to say padding 1.5 rem. And then there's other utilities that aren't just like inline styles, like max width small. So this actually adds a media query to say that the maximum size of what the maximum size of the container should be on small devices. You can't do that with inline styles. So there's a lot more to it than just inline styles. And I think on first glance, that's what it looks like. But there's a lot of niceties hidden behind these little helper names here. And then the other thing is like the design system of using colors, right? So like they have a hard-coded color here. Of course, you could use CSS variables, but to have a whole system of colors like this and using consistent names like this is really nice. Yeah, you can look at their color system, and all of this is kind of just built in. One thing I'll point you to though is like if that made sense, you're like, okay, I could see. I can start to understand the Tailwind people now a little bit. One thing you should look at is, but maybe you don't want to use Tailwind, there is a thing called open props, which basically gives you all of those CSS variables that I'm talking about by default. So open props gives you, like you add it to your page, and then they have all of these CSS variables that you can use, like radius 2, size fluid, shadow 3. And so it's very similar to Tailwind in that this is kind of your design system, but instead of having magic numbers all over your CSS, you can use the variables that are built into open props and have like much more consistent styles. So if you don't like Tailwind, I think you should at least be using something like open props. Okay. Did I convince anyone? Sorali says, my company's in the process of redesigning and rewriting our AngularJS app to SvelteKit and Svelte using Svelte, Shadcn, and Tailwind. Really been enjoying it. That's good to hear. Yeah, I mean, Svelte is definitely a joy to work in. Like, I really like their way of working with front end and back end components. Yeah, let's see. Use var? Yeah, like CSS variables. Getting Tailwind global styles to work without breaking UIs was a bit of a pain, but I managed somehow. Oh, wait, so you're using them at the same time and then slowly pulling out Material UI? That seems like a feat. You should write a blog post if you haven't yet. In Tailwind, you would all have to use custom color variables too. Otherwise, changing X color website becomes wide becomes a pain. Well, yeah, you would change it in your Tailwind theme. So whenever you're doing your initial setup, inside of your theme object here, you can set what you want your primary, your secondary colors to be, and then you can even override like what text red is or whatever else. So you could set the colors there, and then you don't have to set it everywhere. If you use Tailwind with dynamic values, that is not something you should do. Let me see if I can find an example of this. It's when you use the brackets. It's something you should avoid because that defeats the whole purpose of Tailwind. Like this. So a lot of the Tailwind classes actually do support arbitrary values like this. And this this defeats the purpose of the design system. So you should actually pull this into your Tailwind config, and you can actually give it a name. You could give it a new color name and then access it on all of your classes versus having this hard-coded all over your Tailwind code base. So yeah. This is nice. Thanks for sharing this. Oh, about Tailwind. Is that what you're saying? Have I slightly convinced you or made you slightly less mad about Tailwind? Yeah, there are proper and improper ways to use either of them. I agree. I yoink open props box shadows because they are lovely. Yeah, what's up, BMind? I haven't personally used open props, but if I start a project without open props is nice. Yeah. Let me link it. Personally, I haven't built a site with it, but I want to give it a try. What's up, William Cameron? Good to see you. Love a bit of Tailwind. Nice. Okay, yeah. So that's that. we went down a rabbit hole of Tailwind. Where are we at? We're here. Yeah, Solid was introduced in 2020. I remember trying Solid pretty early on and really liking it. Mainly, like I do think Solid is kind of like the easiest on-ramp for existing React developers if they want to start to do some more modern things, like have signals, have components that don't re-render over and over and over again. Solid is very nice. The new kid on the block. Yeah. HTMX was released in 2020. React Suspense was in 2021. ChatGPT was in 2022 to fix dev procrastination and create unmaintainable code. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it does, but I don't use it much. And then server components were introduced in 2023. Yeah. So this was fun. Check out this post if you haven't yet. I thought it would be fun to go over, have a quick trip down memory lane. And then, yeah, there's some good conversation here. If you're just joining us, you kind of missed us talking about the gap in the years here. So there's a whole gap between 95 and 2006. And there was a lot going on back then, like in between that time, like introduction of iframes, introduction of Ajax. There was Flash, Java applets, Real Player, Silverlight, all of these applet embed based things that happened across that time, and it still happened into the early 2000s as well. Okay, that was fun. Let's write some code. Who's ready to write some code? Type 1 in chat if you're ready to write some code. We're first going to do this CSS battle. We're going to try to recreate this with using CSS only. If you want to play along, there is the link. And if you come up with a solution, feel free to throw a link in the chat to like a GitHub gist so I can look at your code. Yeah. In CSS code, yeah. I mean, actually, I never thought about this, but trying to implement some of these using Tailwind, like a Tailwind CSS battle would actually be pretty fun as well. So yeah, give this a try. And can I explain about server CI? Remind me when we're done with this CSS battle, and I'll do my best to explain that. But if you haven't heard of CSS battles, if you go to cssbattle.dev, they have a bunch of different battles that you can do. What I like to do is go into their past battles, because they actually do have a system to upgrade to be able to do some of the other battles. But if you go to the past battles, you can actually do all of these for free, see if you like the service, and then decide if you actually want to do like their monthly payment to get the more recent stuff in their other battles. But all of these past battles, number 32 and before, all of these are completely free to try. And we're doing battle number 46. And one of the ideas with CSS Battle is it's actually code golf. So you get more points by using less code, but I'm not that great at CSS. So my goal is to just get it working. I'm just going to get it working. I'm not really going to work on code golf. If you're really good at CSS, that's another way to basically challenge yourself. Like if you're looking at this and you're like, oh, I could do that in a minute flat. Try to do it with code golf, meaning solve it with the least number of characters, including your HTML code and your CSS code here. All right, let's get into it. First up, we need the background color. So I am just going to set the body's background color to be that. We're going to do just a little basic reset and get rid of margin on everything and padding on everything and do a box sizing of border box on everything. Okay. Then this little div right here is going to be our circle. So I'm going to give it this color here. And we want to give it a border radius of 50% so that it is a circle. Beautiful. Then I want to put it in the center of the page. So I'm just going to make the body a grid. And then I should be able to do place content center. Please work, please work. Yeah, so it works, but this page doesn't have automatic height. So I'll give it a height of 100 view height. Boom, it's in the center. Okay, now we need to increase the size of this little circle. I'm going to make it 300 pixels. That's too big. 200 pixels. That is just right. So it has this little slider thingy where you can see what you've done versus what you're trying to do. You can also look at the diff to see how closely you overlap. So good to go. I have a circle in the middle of the page. I'm a CSS developer. I'm a CSS programmer. Okay, my thought for implementing this is to create squares and then just rotate them and then make it so that the overflow of this circle is hidden. So let's say I put a div inside of there. And then let's give this a class of triangle. I'm going to give it a background color of this. And then I'm just going to put a class on this so that the styles aren't overlapping. I'm going to call this circle. And then replace this with circle. And then our triangle, let's give it a height and width of 200. We'll probably have to resize it to figure out exactly what it's probably like 150. Something like that. So now this triangle is inside of the circle, but as you can see, it the edges of it are visible. If we say overflow hidden on the circle, that hides any of the children that are poking out of the container. And then I want to rotate this thing. So I'm going to do a CSS transform. Yeah, positioning is going to be interesting. Getting it in the exact right spot. Like, I know that I can rotate it using CSS transform, but getting it down and to the right will be tricky. But here, I'm just going to... Do we just think it's a 90-degree rotation? Let's try it. $45. Yeah, 45. And then do we just use translate to get it down to where we want it? Wow, I've never heard of a conic gradient. So Nick 39 Cry says, I wonder how hard it would be with a conic gradient. Did I say chronic? CSS conic gradient. So like a cone gradient? I have never heard of this. Whoa. You probably could get it working. Yeah. Okay. I don't want to do this because I don't have enough time to learn it right now. I just want to get it working, but that's cool. I'll link to that. I have never heard of this. Yeah. Yeah, the bot doesn't seem to be working over on YouTube. Oh, so here are links. Here are our socials. And what's up, Neurixius? Good to see you. Kevin Powell. Oh, did Kevin Powell teach you about conic gradient? Yeah, shout out to Kevin Powell. His YouTube channel is amazing. All about CSS. The king of CSS. Whoa.
Hello and welcome to
He's
my
getting
channel.
up there. 952,000 subscribers. That's awesome. But yeah, check him out. All the CSS stuff he does over on his channel. Okay, I have rotated my triangle. I think I'm just going to use a translate X to get it in the right spot, and then I'll do a translate Y after that. So I'm gonna go that way. Let's do 30%. Okay, and then we'll bring it down for a translate Y of 30%. Pretty good. Probably 35%. No. It's probably 40% down. It's probably 50% down. Yes, it is. I think that's it. I think the tops are lined up. And then is it a 50% to the right? No. 70. 80. 90. 5%. 100%. That's closer. I think maybe our triangle isn't the right width and height. But now we'd have to do less translate Y. It's pretty good, actually. I guess we go -%. The translate X and Y separately is like throwing things off. I don't know why. I mean, it should be the same thing as this, right? Ah, good call, Sue Austin. Set a transform origin. What is the I guess the default transform origin is like the top left corner. If we set the transform origin to center, that will probably be more predictable. Thank you for that. Yeah, that's the way to go. That's what I like. Look at that. So much easier. Okay. 60? 70? 20? Yeah, America 2050 says my recommendation is always use pixels, not percentage. I think I'm gonna have to because this is like I adjust the Y and then it messes with the X, and then I adjust the X and it messes with the Y. Because like technically I need to bring it down like a few percentages. Yeah, let's go with a pixel location. Like, because we know the circle is 200 pixels wide, so probably like 150 pixels in the X, and then like 50 pixels in the Y. Ooh, I mean, that's closer. 20? It's so close. Do I need a bigger square? I think that's the issue, is I don't know how big the square should be. Isn't there like a tool that can measure the width and height of a thing on your screen? Okay, America 2050 says 110 and 20. Oh, it's so close. Look at this diff. It's actually, looking at the diff will probably be easier. 19? 18? 17? Oh, that's so close. That's so close. That's got to be it, right? There's just like a slight edge. We'll see. We might only get like 99%. You think it'll give 100? Okay. America 2050 thinks we'll get 100% with that. Yeah. Nurixia says, is there any reason you prefer using percentage instead of using pixels? No reason. Only, I think I always go to percentages because it's a little bit more responsive. Not always, but like if the width and height were percentages and then the transform was percentages, then it could be relative according to percentages. Whereas like pixels are hard coded. In this case, pixels make sense. And also, I don't know how if it's even a good practice to size things with percentages in that way. Didn't CSS Battle implement some measuring tool? I thought maybe that's just a plugin for like Chrome. I don't know. All right, we got that. Let's call this triangle 1. Actually, we'll do this. We'll call it we'll create another class called triangle 2. That just changes the transform. Okay. So up here, we've got that triangle, and then we need another triangle. I'm just going to make this black for now so that we can see it. And I guess it's underneath the other one. Why can't I see it? I guess I want this one to start at the top left corner like the other. Position absolute top 0 left 0. Because otherwise we're positioning it from being underneath the other div, and then this will have position relative. It has no width and height. Oh, okay. Good call. Thank you, Pranav, in the Twitch chat. We need to give it the triangle class and the triangle 2 class. Yeah, that's what I would expect. So basically before it only had this, but I wanted to have all of these, and then we just override the transform. Cool. Thank you for that. Use pseudo elements? Oh, that's probably okay. We learned, so last time on Syntax Bytes, I learned about box shadow. And this is basically like an offset box shadow of the other one. Using like after. That is the way to go. We don't need a separate element. I can do this with a box shadow. Pretty sure. Did I learn about box shadows? I think I did. I'm pretty sure we use box shadows for all kinds of things. I have to look it up again because I don't remember how it all works. And Stefan is saying pseudo elements would be better, but it says shortest code wins, so it might not be the shortest. I guess if you do a pseudo, you could say like before and then position it accordingly. But wouldn't a box shadow like have the exact same shadow and then we could offset it, right? So what are the values? It goes length, 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 Two length values. What are the length values? Is it X, Y, color, and then type? Yeah, offset X, offset Y, blur radius, spread radius. So if we did something like 5 pixels X, 5 pixels Y, black, that does nothing. What happened to my triangle? Oh, semicolon. Yes, okay. So as you can see, there's that little thing poking out there. 10? No, -5. Yeah, okay. I think we can go like -20 or so. Let's try -30 and then bring the Y down. Did I do it? No, even more, even more. Wow, I've done it. Box shadow is so easy, man. Everybody should be using box shadow. Where has box shadow been all my life? Look at this. That's the one, and then just make it red. Look at that. It's not quite right. Let's mess with the numbers a little bit. So let's bring the X up a little bit. Like let's do 129. Yeah. And then if we do like -131, no, -30 has to be it. Hopefully this works. I hope it's not like 99%. Yeah, and JT says box shadow without blur seems like a pretty good solution. It works out. Yeah, it works out. That's it. We did it. But let's see. Okay, so now we're going to submit to see if we did it. Here we go. We're hoping for 100%. Yes. We did it. Sweet. That wasn't that bad. I think so to get a higher score, we got a score of 601. To get it even higher, you got to use less characters. So remove all the extra spaces, probably implement some variables so that way we're like not repeating things. But this is my solution. If anybody made your own solution for this, throw a link in the Twitch chat. Links don't work over on YouTube, but if you head to Twitch, you can paste a link there. Control A, Shift Tab. Wait, what? Oh. You're saying unindent everything? Yeah. Unindent all of my codes, and so right now my score is 601.72. It'll be like slightly higher because I have less space. Improved by 3 points. Sweet. Okay, let's move on to the next one, which is implementing the Iceland flag. And oh, you got the same cup. What's up, Stefan? Are you going to be at JS Nation US? Or did you go to? Oh, it's a little dirty. Or did you go to the JS Nation Amsterdam? I got this at Amsterdam 2023. Yeah, nice. What's up, Ames Bucket? Yeah, the whole point is, I mean, the CSS engine doesn't care about, or the CSS parser doesn't care about white space. But the scoring mechanism for the site cares about white space. Oh, what did I call you? Did I call you Bucket? Sorry, Ames Bucket. Good to see you. Welcome in. Okay, my thought for this, I'm just gonna make a bunch of divs. Like this is a square with border on the bottom and right, a rectangle with a border on the left and bottom, and quick stretch. Oh, the only so Mixed Nuts is mentioning you would think they wouldn't care since the engine doesn't matter. But does it either? The whole point of the site is fewest number of characters. It's basically code golf. Like they want you to write your code like this, but even less. Like people were saying, using pseudo elements will actually get you even closer to less characters. I see what you're saying though. Like they shouldn't care about white space, but they do. That's the whole thing. Like code golf is a thing, and they absolutely care about white space. But the best solution is going to be all on one line, and then your class names are probably going to be single letters. If you are using class names like this, you could probably throw this into a CSS minifier, but that's only going to get you so far. I think what really would do it is also like maybe these internal triangles actually could have been a pseudo element, like before or after instead of a separate div, and that would save you some characters too. Yeah. Is Razor Pages worth learning in 2024? It depends. I mean, there's a lot of companies, enterprise companies, that are probably still using Razor Pages. So Razor Pages is a .NET thing. And these days, you'll come across .NET apps that are using MVC. I guess, can you use Razor inside of MVC? Or no, they're separate. They're separate. And then these days, you might even come across like newer apps that are using Blazor. But is it worth learning? I think if you want to find a job at a company like that, then probably, yeah. Otherwise, I personally wouldn't. I think there are better ways and easier ways to build websites. I think. I don't know. That's just my opinion, though. All right, let's build this thing. Like I said, we're gonna have a bunch of rectangles with various borders, and then I'm just thinking we do 2 big old divs to make the cross. Let's make the cross first. So let's set the background on the body. That we'll do that reset again. Okay. Now I'm gonna make the red cross. I guess technically, I was thinking if you did a red cross and it was the thing to have the white borders, how would you not have overlapping borders like right here? Huh. Might be learning Avalonia UI. Is this the WPF replacement? Yeah. Why do you say pray for me? The seems fine. I think this was like the open source modern replacement for Windows Presentation Foundation. Seems fine. I've never used it, but it seems fine. Keep the top. I mean, Razor Pages is web dev. Like it's using C# and .NET. I don't mind taking a few seconds to talk about it. But now I'm gonna lock in. And I'm not going to second guess myself, because I was thinking, okay, well, if we did just a red rectangle down the middle and gave it a white border, that could work. Maybe I'll just do that first. Let's create ourselves like the middle rectangle. We'll give it a height of 100 view height, and then we'll make it this red color. And then we'll give it a border, let's say 10 pixels white, solid white. But we don't want that. We only want the border on the left and the right. What's the order here? How does border work? 4 blue squares. That's where I'm going to go next. Yeah. So my idea is, well, so you're saying just make the back. Oh, you're completely right. If we just make the background red and then make 4 blue squares, we don't even have to worry about that. It's kind of what I wanted to do anyways. I'm going to do that. That sounds better to me. So just make the whole thing red, and then these are going to be little blue divs with white borders. But how do we specify border on just like bottom and right? Can you do it with this syntax, or do you have to specifically do like left border, like right border, bottom border? Stefan has it. Top right, bottom left. Top right, bottom left. It's not working. Did I do this wrong? Line width, line style, color. Top width, right width, bottom width, left width. Border style, solid, and then color. Do I have a syntax error? I might just reach for border left and border bottom and border right. I'm going to do that because I don't want to spend too much time on this. Like that. And then we can also do border bottom as the same thing. All right, I'm gonna clean this up a little bit. I'm going to create some CSS variables. We're gonna create a blue variable, and that's gonna be this. I don't think you can do that. You have to specify which side. Separate the border width from the border color. I see. Okay, but I'm going to do it this way. This should be fine. But now that I have that variable, I could say var blue, like that. And then the height, we're going to bring it down a bit to 50 pixels. 150 pixels. 100 pixels. 120, 30, 130 pixels. 120 pixels, and then the width is probably a little bit bigger as well. It's pretty close. Is it 130? 125. And then our border, it's bigger than that, 15. Cool. That's it. Look at us. We've done it. Okay. I can put this into a variable as well. Let's just call this border. Like that. And then we've got a little bit less repetition. Challenge, make it a grid. That's what Stefan says. I thought about that first. I was like, could you do this with CSS grid? Yeah, I mean, absolutely you could. You could break this down into like, this is one row with like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 elements. And then the next row is 1, 2, 3 elements. And then just one element. You could do it. You definitely could do it. Am I going to do it? No, but you definitely could. I'm going to call this one the top left. There's some suggestions. Abdal Arman mentioned border color red, border width. So you can just do it separately. I see. Grid template columns, 30 pixels, 50 pixels. Yeah, you could like explicitly set each one. Yeah. Just wanted to stop in and say hello. How do you like your job? I love syntax. It's great. I love working here. I mean, it gets stressful, but it's only stressful because I make it stressful. Like I spend too much time researching or spend too much time trying to, or like being too much of a perfectionist about editing or anything stressful is what I bring on myself because the team is super chill. Yeah. The videos I did when I had the hair on top of my head were really good and motivating. Thanks. I mean, hopefully my current videos are still good and motivating. But if you look back in the history of Coding Garden, I used to have a little top knot. Like this 4 years ago. Look at him. he's got a little bun on his head. Okay. It is less code. I'm going to leave it like this, though. Wait, where did that come from? Okay, cool. So this is top left. The bottom left. Actually, I want to make a class called left that has the height in it. Sorry. Yeah. It's going to have the height and width because those can be shared with the top and bottom. And then top left looks like that. And then the border right can be the same for both of the ones on the left. And the background is the same. But the bottom left will have a position of fixed and a bottom of 0. So that should put it in the bottom left corner. And then we need to give it a border top, which uses our border color. Border top. There we go. Okay, left side done. Right side should be basically the same. So we're gonna have another div. We're gonna call it top right. And then our top right. Box shadow instead of border would be shorter to, oh, you're probably right. Box shadow for everything. You're completely right. Because, yeah, like if we made, if we made them, what's 125 minus 15 is 110. So if the boxes were 110 pixels, and then the box shadow was 15 pixels in the X and 15 pixels in the Y, with no border. And how do we fill in this area right here? Huh. Like, how do you make the size of the box shadow bigger than the element? Any ideas? I guess we just add another one. We just add another box shadow that doesn't have the X offset, but it has the Y offset. Because top left X 0 pixels Y 15 pixels. Y, like that. This is longer. Unless I'm not doing the box shadow right, like if I have to do this for all the areas, then this is going to be more code. We're gonna go back. I'm gonna go back to what I was doing and just implement the right side because I'm basically almost done. Okay, so our top right is gonna need a. We're gonna make it position fixed, and I'm just gonna make a top class here. Position fixed, background blue, border bottom. No, border left is gonna be the common thing. And we're going to say right 0. So that's going to push it all the way to the right. With why did it change the other one? Oh, because I called both of them. Wait. We've got left, top left. I need to call this right. Okay. Position fixed, right 0, and then width, let's call it 300 pixels. And height, 110 pixels. That's weird. The width is way less than that. 200. 210. 220. 225. And then top 0 as well. So it's at the top of the page. There we go. Okay. And then top right also has a border bottom. Look at that. And then lastly, we just need the bottom right. And it will have a bottom 0. So top 0 needs to be in the top right. This is too easy. And then border top here. Like that. We've done it. When you use border, you have to make the square bigger. Oh, you're right. Okay. Good call. Oh, it should be this. Shouldn't it be the same height as Oh, my other one is off. Okay. Is it bigger? Oh, it's bigger than it should be. No, it's not. It's not big enough. It's 120? 125? 125 is the way to go. Okay. Marek is mentioning border is taking a space from the element, just add 15 pixels. I guess that's what we did, but I did it gradually without just doing the math. Yeah, okay, we've done it. Let's submit. 100%. Sweet. That was all right. I would like to see it done with a border box, or box shadow. But it did look like it was going to be more code. Maybe I wasn't thinking about it in the right way. Yeah, I'd be curious if anybody implemented it with grid. I'd like to see it. Yeah. Would moving the height to anything blue? They're all the same height. Oh, you're right. Yeah, that would save us some codes, because every single div is 125 pixels high. Now we're just making art. But if we say every div has a height of 120, oh no. What did I do? I'm not going to change it. I deleted the wrong line. Height 125. There we go. Height 125. Yeah, that's what we want to see. Okay, now every div can have a height of 125. All right. All right. Cool. All right. Next, we're going to work on the syntax website. So I'm going to take a quick 5-minute break. You should too. If you've been sitting at home all day, get up, walk around a little bit, get some water. And before that, I want to look at how BeMine did it, because they said they did it without golfing, but I'm very curious. Oh, look at that. The colors are off, but that's okay. And the other thing is they used Pug. So if you haven't heard of Pug, Pug is a templating language. So this is equivalent to a div with 4 divs inside of it. Yeah, that's funny. Pug life. says BeMine. All right. The grid. Oh, grid template areas. That's cool. I like that a lot. Yeah, okay. So it's 3 columns and 3 rows. And then we have all of these areas. So the cool thing about grid template areas is you can give it names. So top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right. And then you can, for each of the things, you can tell it which area it should be in. So you're basically explicitly saying, go to this section, go to that section. So that's a really cool way to do it. So like this div goes to the top left. This div goes to the bottom left. Yeah, that's really great. Nice solution. Yeah, the colors are off, but that's not what we're worried about. They just use red and blue, but they got the sizing of everything correct. Yeah. Okay, yeah, 5-minute break. When we come back, we're going to work on the syntax website. So one of the first issues is a pretty simple one, but on the home page, these 3 things here don't link anywhere, but I want to turn them into links, because we do have sections of the site that will actually filter down to just show you the hasty treats, the tasty treats, and the supper club. And then another fun one is we're going to implement some structured data. So each of the podcast pages right now doesn't have any embedded structured data, but we're going to embed this JSON LD that has all the information about each podcast episode. Okay, that's the plan. I'll see you in 5 minutes. All right, we are back. And if you're just joining us, we are now going to work on the Syntax website. So syntax.fm is our website. It has all of our podcast episodes, as well as most of the videos that I've been putting up and Scott has been putting up on the channel. But it is open source. So if you go to github.com/syntaxfm/website, you can pull the code down, run it locally if you'd like to. And if you come across an issue, you can open an issue. So we have issues here. This one was opened up by Toin or Ton. And they mention that on the homepage, we have these 3 sections here, but they're not clickable. Like, it would be nice if you could click in and then filter to all the episodes that are Hasty Treats or Tasty Treats or Supper Club. And so Scott did mention that you actually can filter when you're on the all episodes page. So basically all I'm going to do is turn these into links. So that way, when you click on them, it goes to the filtered page. It should be pretty simple, but let's get it going. So locally, I'm going to go into site, check out the main branch, pull all the latest. Whoa. Oh, okay. I think I was like, what changed here? There's some image optimization that I think Scott added in, or someone added in, that changed a lot of our image files. So that's cool. Nothing pending locally, and I'm going to spin up the database and the Redis. So the Postgres database and the Redis, or no, the MySQL database and the Redis database. And you can do that with Docker Compose App. So we have a Docker file in the repo that starts up a Redis database. Well, actually, it starts up a Redis HTTP server. So that way it's compatible with Upstash, because when we're deployed, we're talking to Upstash. And then it also spins up a MySQL server. So whenever you then spin up the app with pnpm run dev, this will connect to that MySQL database and that Redis database. Here we go. Website is preheated. Does it work? It works. Cool. So this is the site running locally on my machine. And we're not going to do any more CSS battles today. Yeah, that's it for today. What's up, Evolution? Dezuka says, you got me finally picking up Vue with your vids. Good stuff. Nice. Love to hear it. I like Vue a whole lot. So I'm glad you're using it. But yeah, no more CSS battles for today. If these interest you, check out the previous live streams. There's a playlist on the channel here. If you go to playlists, there is the Syntax Byte playlist. And yeah, 2 other episodes I actually worked on CSS battles, so you can check those out. And we're going to do more in the future. And the live stream will be more of a regular thing. Probably starting in like December, maybe even I was going to say last week of this month, but holidays, but probably starting in January, I'm going to start live streaming twice a month on every other Friday. So you'll see a whole lot more of me. Okay. So the site's running locally. Let's make these things link. And the first, we should just open up the code. open up the this folder in VS Code. And if you're ever in a brand new code base and you need to go fix something, you've been assigned a task, probably the easiest way, or one of the ways to start and just find, where is this? Where can I find this right here? Is to just do a plain text search across the code base. Now, it's very likely that this is on the home page. And so if you know anything about SvelteKit, you could look in here and be like, okay, it's probably in source. It's probably in routes. But then where do I go? Is it on site? Maybe it's on site. And then maybe it's on site. It's in the page.svelte. That's my guess. And then there's like a podcast hero component, and I'm guessing it's actually inside of the podcast hero component. Because there's that. Oh, maybe not. Could be a component. Regardless, even I, who has worked in this code base before, don't know where it is. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to literally search the whole code base for that specific piece of text and just see where it pops up. So Command-Shift-F this, and then there's a schedule component. Would you look at that? So in source, there's a lot of code in this code base, but in source lib, there is a component called schedule.svelte, and this is it. Easy. And so this div is the hasty treat, then we have the tasty treat. So I'm literally going to turn this entire thing into a link. Yeah, I think the main thing is if I just wrap this in a link, we're probably going to get some weird styling. Let's see. If so, I'm just going to override that styling. Are you not supposed to have p tags inside of a... Oh, no, okay, that's fine. Needs an href. Let's see. Turning these into links could make them ugly. It doesn't. Awesome. So, this is going to be so easy to fix, because what we need to do is if we go to all the shows and then filter by type, like hasty, you can see that the URL should just be shows type hasty. Easy. That. And then this will be for tasty. We can confirm. Yeah, type is tasty. Abdal Arman is asking, what are we using for styling? It's all just custom CSS. We're not using Tailwind or anything like that. Just a bunch of CSS. Oh, that's good to know. America 2050 says, I believe Svelte has a browser extension that will link you to Visual Studio Code and open the file where the piece of code lives. That's awesome. Is there a Svelte DevTools? I'm curious if there are Svelte DevTools, do they have support for Svelte version 5? Because this site is being built with Svelte version 5. Browser extension to inspect the Svelte application by extending your browser's DevTool capabilities. How do I install it? Do I have to download it and build it? It's in the Chrome Web Store, but is it in the Firefox Web Store? This is the one from Red Hatter. Is that the same? I thought I saw Red Hatter somewhere. Yeah. This extension was initially created and developed by Red Hatter. When was this last updated, though? Is this up to date? 4 years ago! They need a build for Firefox. Well, no extension for me because I'm using Firefox. Okay, and then we can filter by Supper Club, and the type is supper. All right, that should do it. Done. That's my work for the day. Okay, so now these are nice and clickable, and that takes you to hasty treats and tasty treats and the Supper Club. Heck yeah. No ChatGPT. No, I mean, I'm a real developer. I know how to do this without Copilot or ChatGPT. So I did. Okay, that was super easy, and we can feel good about ourselves because we got some work done. So I'm going to check out a branch. We're going to call this fix. What's the issue number? 1889. So we'll add a feature link show cards on homepage. Show types. Push it up to this branch. Do you always work on main and then create a branch for those changes? Create a branch as early as possible. I forgot to, but you should. Usually when you start working on something, create the branch first, just so you don't forget. But yeah. Okay, so we push that up. I'm going to make a PR now. And then I'll also reference number 1889. So that way, whenever the PR is merged, it'll auto close this issue. New pull request. Adds links to all the show types on the home page. Fixes number 1889. 1889. We've got Hasty, Tasty, and Supper Club. Cool. We'll request Wes and also Scott to review. Wait, did Vercel deploy it that quickly? Oh, it's building. Okay, I was about to say. It's like, there's no way. Awesome. Okay. Next up, let's work on this implement structured data for each podcast. So the idea is that when you go to a specific show, like this one, the source of this page should have a script application LD JSON in it that has all of the show metadata. And currently they do not. And it should be pretty easy because we have all of this info loaded from the database. So yeah, should be pretty easy. It's part of the HTML. So a lot of search engines that have like little card embeds, or when you share a link on a website, if your site has this stuff in it, it's actually going to pull from that. So it's inside the HTML itself. Yeah. I mean, I'm curious what websites do it. A lot of recipe websites actually have this. I know this because I was making like a recipe scraper website. But yeah, so a lot of websites, they'll have recipes, but then there'll be like a whole blog post before you even get to the recipe. But to be more searchable and indexable, they have this application LD, and then the type is recipe. So schema.org has all kinds of schemas. Let's see if we can find the recipe schema. Yeah, and so there's a schema for recipe, which has all of the things that you would want to know, like ingredients and nutrition and prep time, but it's in a structured format. There's another issue on the repo that has to do with adding information about the hosts and the guests. So there's a schema called profile. Like, oh yeah, there's a person schema and a profile schema. And so on the site, if we go to an episode that has a guest, like this one, this page could actually have the profile schema embedded in it. So that way, if this page shows up in a search engine, it's going to have all the info about Taylor, including like their link out to social media and stuff like that. So yeah, it's part of the HTML. So Google can show when they have 4.5 stars or difficulty level and things. Yeah, so any place that needs to show metadata about a website tries to at least find that information in application LD-JSON first. You can see there's other ways to do it though. As in, yeah, there's this microdata type. A lot of websites have this too, which makes them pretty easy to scrape if they're using like item scope, and item prop. This can just be in the HTML itself, but it uses these structured props so that it's easily parsable. Yeah, and then there's this, and then this is just the schema itself. But yeah, that's a thing. Okay. Let's check out a different branch. First, I'll check out main. Pull from main just in case anything changed. And then we'll check out a branch to fix number 1257. Okay. So this should specifically be on the show page itself. And if we look at site, show number, or slug, show number, slug, layout. I think we can put it in the layout because Svelte has a specific head component. Let's see. And then we can just specify that it should show up in the head. Yeah, here's a header. No, that's not the head, that's the header. Yeah, I'm gonna need to look this up because I think it's slightly different in Svelte 5. Not that. SvelteKit. Head. Special elements, svelte:head. This element makes it possible to insert elements into the document head during server-side rendering. This is what we want. Yeah, just this. And does the layout have access to the when this page gets rendered, it should, I think it would have already loaded all of the show metadata, like the name, the MP3 URL, all that stuff. So we should have access to that in the layout.svelte. So let's see. If we look in layout.server, this is the code that runs on the server that actually talks to the database. So, yeah, and we do some caching. So basically pull the show from the cache or from the database if it wasn't in the cache. And this has guests, hosts, all our AI show notes, and then all the info about it. So we should have access to the show inside of our layout.svelte. So this file, layout.server, runs on the server to get all of the data, and then it renders layout.svelte on the server, which in turn renders the page, which is loaded within that layout. And so right here, data.show, I think, should have all the info that we need. And so I'm going to throw a svelte head right here that adds a script type LD-JSON. For now, I'll just leave this hard-coded to see if it actually shows up. Oh, and I'm going to enable ESLint because I had it disabled because I've been working with Dino so much. So let's just disable the Dino extension. Enable ESLint. I think we have a prettier config. We might have switched fully to ESLint. I know there were a lot of changes that happened there recently. Accidentally closed my editor. Okay. So now, ESLint fix all auto-fixable problems. Let me see. Do we have a prettier RC? Yeah, we do. Okay. So I can run prettier. There we go. Okay. So that got added to the head. Now, if I go to a specific show and I look at the source for it, we should see that application LD JSON. We don't. Yeah. Oh, I mean, this site has been around for a long time. Since I'm such a huge Drizzle fan, I'm a fan of both. I like these days, if I'm making a new project, I'm going to choose Drizzle just because I really like the types, the type integration. Was it slash or minus? Application LD plus JSON. This is what it should be. Oh, you know what? I bet it's in the cache. Oh no, there it is. Okay. So there's that script element, and then there's all the data. Cool. Cool. So now we just need to fill it in. How do I get access to props inside of rendering in the head? Will it just work? Can I do something like... I almost need to like dynamically generate even the script tag and then insert that into the head. Let's look at their docs. Svelte docs to see if they have an example of that. I don't want the example. I want the docs. This element may only appear at the top level and must never be inside a block or an element. During server rendering, the head content is exposed separately to the main body component. Okay, I'm just going to search the web. Svelte head access props. How can I access a component prop from a parent inside a script tag? No, I don't think that's what I want. Yeah. What's up, Oscar? Good to see you. Like normal Svelte? I mean, if there's a way to do it in Svelte. Svelte head render dynamic script tag. How to set a dynamic HTML tag according to props. I mean, I could just try it. I could literally just try like at HTML. I'm not getting syntax highlighting right there, so I don't think it's going to work. I'm just going to put this in a thing called data. And then we'll stringify an object. I don't think I can do this. Huh. We got any Svelte people in the chat? Anybody know how to use Svelte? Where's Paolo when you need him? Or Pablo? Oh, and thanks, Abdal Arman. And what's up, Pranjal? Watching your last Denver walking stream. Good to catch this live stream. Oh yeah, glad to hear it. Yeah, I've done some IRL streams over on the Coding Garden channel. I guess I'll just try to render the page, but it looks like this isn't going to work because the maybe I need a script in the module scope, but variables defined here don't look like they're accessible inside of Svelte head. Let's try it though. Yeah. Identify. Oh, let's call it something else. Another. Yeah, see, it just renders, it just sends it directly. Hmm. What does a programmer do when they don't know how to figure something out? Yeah, we will very likely go over to an AI tool if I can't find a solution soon. Yeah, so this is, yeah, they're trying to do it. They're trying to do it exactly like this. This should tell us how. You may need to preserve LD-JSON tags in a Svelte preprocess. This is from 2021, though. Shows up in HTML code exactly as written in the head tag. The only form that seems to work as of this is the @HTML injection method. Preprocess preserve LD-JSON. Google doesn't mind that it appears in the body. This is a good issue to find, though. Let's hop over to Google. I guess we could just explicitly search for application LD-JSON. So you can just access a variable like this? That's what this is saying? Some JSON. This is from 2019, though. This might have changed in the more recent versions. This is the correct way to do it. That wasn't rendering at all for us, though. Like that. Let's see. Oh. Oh! That makes sense. Okay. Don't put it in the script tag. Just literally render it out like this. Okay. Yeah, this is the way. This is the way. Okay. Which means... Oh! Oh, yeah. Oscar's like that oh moment. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes total sense. Like, if you want to access things, don't put it in a nested script tag. Just do it out here. This is the way. Okay, so let's call this the... what do we want to call this? Schema. Show schema. And we'll do it like this. We'll do it like that. We'll do it like this. And then we will stringify the show schema. I want it to be on the next line, though. And with formatting. Look at that. Okay, now we just got to put the actual data into it. So URL is going to be this specific URL. How do we get access to that inside of the Svelte layout? Is it something to do with like navigation? Hey, Stony Eagle, good to see you. Welcome in. Relative URLs. App/navigation. SvelteKit get current URL. Take me to a blog post? Page. Is this going to work in the layout? Is this going to work in Svelte 5? So the URL is $page dot path, not params dot URL. The URL of the current page. All right. Page has already been declared. Oh, great. That looks good to me. So yeah, and when it's deployed, it'll be the production URL. All right, everybody, we're doing it. We're doing it. Now we just got to fill everything else in. So the name is just going to be show.title. The date published. Why is this complaining? State referenced in its own scope will never update. Did you mean to reference it inside a closure? Is this derived though? This should be fine because it's running on the server. Date published probably needs to be in this format. We can look at the schema. Could be a date. The ISO 8601 date format, which is year-month-day. Do we have a date parsing library? But there is a created at field here. Yeah, we don't want this. I guess this is year, month, date. I guess if we split on capital T, is that going to work? Also, I guess that would be UTC time. We got to use a date formatter. I'm going to see if we have any installed. Like day.js or with date functions. Beautiful. And then they're using format over here. That's what we want. Okay. Oh, literally in the same component that I was in. So we already have access to format. Show.date. It's already a date. Yeah, it's already a date thing. So we want year dash month dash I gotta go look at the date functions format. Format the date. They should give us a table. Yeah, we want the month standalone. Yeah, LL. Capital L, capital L. And then the day of the month is going to be DD. All right. That should do it. Nice. All right. Time required. This is specifically a duration format. I don't know if we use that anywhere in the app. I'm going to skip that for now. The description should come from the notes. Yeah, I think it's AI show note description. Oh, I don't have any AI show notes locally. That should be it though. I'm gonna assume that that's it, because when you look on the syntax website, these little descriptions right here, these are coming from AI, and that's what we want, I believe. So what is this one? Let's see what that one is. Are those just embedded in the show notes? Oh, show notes is apparently like the whole HTML. Hmm. I'm pretty sure this is the description that we want. Or do we want summary? We want description. Okay. And then the MP3 URL. Where do we find that? Show dot URL. Download the episode. Show.url. Yeah, that's it. Part of a series, the podcast series. The name of the series is Syntax. And the URL is syntax.fm. Okay. Awesome. That is the MP3. Last thing is we need to do a duration formatting. I don't know if there's anything in the code base doing anything like this. PT. Search for like duration. Actually, I guess I'm curious, in the RSS feed, does it include a duration format like that? Let's see. Oh, you know what? I don't think we know what the duration is. I think there's an issue open right now that we don't have like the embedded show duration. Yeah, add episode duration to the DB. Episode duration isn't something we've saved. It would need to be calculated at import. Am I going to have to calculate? I mean, I don't know if it's required. I think we can actually leave it off. Time required. Yeah, we're gonna have to leave it off for now, but I'm gonna add this as a to-do, just like in the object itself. To-do, add duration once we are saving it. Okay. I kind of want to get rid of this warning state referenced locally. I guess let me make sure my Svelte extension is up to date. Curious if I could just access it directly from data, because this is running on the server. No, I think it needs to be that. I'm gonna make this a template string. Okay. Page still loads. And here's all the metadata. Cool. I think this is enough, at least for now. But once we get the duration, we can add that in later. But this should be all we need. Of course, we'll just test a few other pages. Let's actually go way back. Like, what happens if we choose like show number 5 or something like that? Show number 1. React tools. And yeah, so here's the URL, the date, the name, MP3. Yeah. America 2050 says, shouldn't it be syntax.fm/shows? Oh, because that's yeah, you're probably right. But no, I think just linking to the site itself for now. Like we are working on a complete like rework of the site to integrate more like video and all of the other stuff that we do. So eventually there will be a dedicated page for the podcast. Right now the site is kind of like the podcast page. So I think that's good enough for now. Yeah, is the date right? July 5th? Yeah. Okay. Looks good to me. Let's commit it. SQL Gordster is asking, is the new info being wrapped in the script tag? It should be. So basically, the starting script tag is on the previous line, and the closing script tag is on the next line. That's what I was assuming. Let me show you. Yeah, so the script starts right here, and then the data starts on the next line, and then the script ends like that. This is, what are we doing? Add episode structured data. Cool. Just curious, what are your thoughts on testing with Playwright? I think it's fine. I think both of the features that I implemented today are so simple that it doesn't feel like I need a test for it. But yeah, we've had so over on the Coding Garden working on some sites and like adding what was it, Cypress testing, or did we do Playwright? It took a lot, especially when you have like your database running inside of Docker, and then you want to spin up a test database so that when your Playwright tests are running, they're running against the test database. It's quite a bit of configuration just to get all of that going. So I think major features should be tested, but stuff like this should be fine. Should be fine. Okay. And then this fixes number 1257. Awesome. I'll add Scott and Wes as reviewers. And we can test out the previous feature by going to the preview deploy. Let's do that, actually. Link show types on the homepage. It failed. Why did it fail? The Playwright test failed. So, we've had some issues with our Playwright tests, like potentially like connecting to the wrong database, or the database not existing. Process from config.webserver was not able to start. Segmentation fault. Core dump. So yeah, our tests aren't running right now for whatever reason. But, well, if we look at the preview deploy, this particular feature was all about adding links on the homepage. The unexpected curly brace had to do with some CSS code that is correct, but I think it's too new for the parser to understand. But yeah, these should now link to the correct show type. Which it does. Cool. And then we'll wait for our other one to deploy. Click on it. Sure. Yeah, so this one already deployed. And so if we hit a site and then look at the source, there it is. Look at that. It's nice, and the code is all minified and stuff because we're not running in dev mode anymore. But the data is embedded. Sweet. All right. That is all I'm going to do today. We got 2 things done. The tests aren't passing, but that's okay. We still got some stuff done. I was recently working on writing some tests, and to me, they kind of feel redundant at times. However, one can definitely learn a lot when writing tests generally if the flow is too big. Yeah, I think this is the biggest issue that I have with tests is a lot of times we end up testing the underlying libraries, right? So like we're using a framework or we're using a library and it was written to do a specific thing. And it's already tested itself. So when we write tests, it just tests to make sure that it does the thing that it was supposed to do. And that's what it's supposed to do. I think those are wasted tests. But when you have custom implementation that's outside the realm of using some particular library or framework, that to me makes sense to have tests for. Bold of you to assume that libraries have tests. Most of them do. A lot of them don't. You're right, but yeah. If you have ffprobe, you can do ffprobe v quiet print format JSON show format. Oh, are you talking about getting the episode duration? Is that what you're talking about, Stony Eagle? because yeah, we want to do that eventually. I think the main thing is, yeah, because we have that issue for it, but I feel like it would have to be some kind of external task. Maybe we could do it like in a GitHub action, because it is running on Vercel. I don't think the Vercel environment would have access to ffprobe. We would need to use maybe like a WASM version of it or something like that. Yeah. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you everybody for hanging out. Yeah. Yeah, and what's up, Lucas? What are you doing, JSON LD? Yeah, so we just implemented this on the Syntax website. Where now when you go to a specific episode page, it's actually going to return that JSON LD data. It's a pretty simple fix because we already have all of that metadata, like the title, the date, the description, the MP3 URL. So we literally just make that object and then throw it into the head like that. So yeah. All right, but that's it for this episode of Syntax Bytes. Thanks everybody for hanging out. Thank you for all of your comments and insights. We're going to do this again, but the holidays are happening. So you'll probably see me, maybe you'll see me in December. Probably, I hope, I'll hope on doing a live stream here on the Syntax channel in December. Yeah. So potentially, let's say like December 5th or December 12th or December 6th or December 13th. We'll see. But sometime in the first 2 weeks of December, you'll see me on live stream. Yeah, see you later, Stefan. And everybody else, thank you for tuning in. The holidays, yeah, there's Thanksgiving and then there's Christmas. Yeah. A daily stream? I'd like to. I'm working on so many other videos though. Make the CSS battles more frequent. Well, eventually what we want to do is also like potentially make it a little bit more interactive. Like maybe we have Scott on and we're actually battling. Like we're both, like maybe you can see both of our screens and we're both trying to solve it as fast as possible. Or maybe there's a time limit, but whoever can get it in the shortest number of characters within the time limit, something like that. It could be super, super fun, super interesting. We're going to experiment. Okay, that's all I got. Again, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you soon. If you're here and you haven't subscribed or liked this video, please do. Yeah, that's it. We'll see you next time. And stick around for the raid. If you're watching on Twitch, we're going to find a channel to raid. If you're watching on YouTube, head over to twitch.tv/syntaxfm and join us in the raid.